right after Bob and the band, that was the first tour Bob had done in 8 years. That was when he first came out of kind of retirement, whatever. I met Bob, believe it or not, on the 72 Stones tour. He came to the show at the Madison Square Garden in New York, and I could see from that show where his eyes were just like, oh, this is what's been going on while I've been away. That's when he got back together with Robbie, and they put that tour together. And so we did that. That was 74 for a few months. And then in 75, he put together the Rolling Thunder Review. I was in Europe with Santana at the time. I was doing monitors. So I got the call from Bob, because I guess he remembered me, and asked me to come to New York for rehearsals with this thing he's putting together. And we were just wrapping up the tour in Europe with Santana. So I flew, instead of home to California, I flew to New York and went right to SIR in Midtown Manhattan, and walked into rehearsals. And there was Bob and his conglomeration of musicians. When I didn't know who was in the band. I swear to God, I didn't know anybody. When I pulled in outside, there was a truck unloading, and one guy had a black leather jacket that said Vagrants on it. And I go, oh, if they're in the band, that would be interesting, right? It was weirder than that. I got upstairs. There was Mick Ronson from David Bowie, The Spiders from Mars, Roger McGuinn, Joan Baez, a couple other people I had never met before. T-Bone Burnett was on that tour. I had never met him. That was his first tour, you know. So, and there was me. So I was the only person in the room who was not a musician. And Bob just turned to me and was asking me things, you know. And basically I became Bob's guy. He would come to me. The musicians would come to me, assuming that I was Bob's guy. So I was like this buffer, and that was what I was. There's no title for that position. It's just I started. Bob broke a guitar string, handed me the guitar. I had never tuned a guitar in my life, so fortunately we were at a rehearsal place. So the guy showed me how to do that. Then he picked up his electric guitar, broke that string. I learned how to tune an electric guitar. I'd ended up tuning 36 guitars every day, you know, on the tour. And that was like a Zen thing, because then I could sit in the middle of the stage during sound check. People could come to me with all their issues, whether it's sound company or the video, film company or the lighting, anybody, musicians, they could come to me with stuff. So, and I would just point, you know, so that was what was my thing with Bob. So we did that. That was the 75 Rolling Thunder Review. Then we did another one in 76, which was totally different, and weirder. But so we finished that, and then everybody went their separate ways, and then we put together this other band for the Street Legal album, and that was, people said it was Bob Dylan's Gone Vegas, so it was a bigger production. It was kind of more of a Phil Spector thing. Anyway, so I co-produced that album. So it's just like constantly tapping into everything I've been learning since I started as a photographer in the business, you know. So you just, you know, drag it all along, and you apply it to whatever the situation is. And Bob had my trust, you know, so, and I had his, obviously. So this one ended up working for Bob for about 10 years or so. And then the last tour I did with him was in 81. I had been Bob knew me as a photographer too, so I was taking photos on occasion. Like we would go out for walks, you know, in certain places, and I would, you know, I'd bring my camera and we'd just take whatever shots. And it's just two guys walking around, you know. So, and that's it. There was this one shot I took of Bob in the studio in Santa Monica, and because he saw me with my Bronica, which is a kind of a bulky, old school film camera. And he says, "You want to take a couple shots?" I said, "Sure." So I knocked off 4 frames. And because with the Bronica, they're very loud. It's like when you crank it and you fire off the shutter, it sounds like you're crushing garbage cans. So it's kind of distracting. And I was distracted and I was nervous. So I did 4 shots and then we went back to studio world, So, and that's kind of where, it was all leading up to doing everything you can do for one guy. And I was going to quit touring. So I told Bob, and he says, "You want to play drums?" And I said, "Okay." That was the hook, because he knew that I played drums in the studio and we would do different weird things. So on the tour, he had me become a drummer alongside my other favorite, Jim Keltner. So it's Jim Keltner and myself, and I'm sitting maybe 3 feet away from him. So all night, if you see any photos of me, it's me looking at Jim. I'm playing because on the tour I was in music terms I was number 1, which meant I knew where 1 was at all times in the beat. And Bob would always come looking for me to see where 1 was, because Jim would play all this great off stuff, which is really hard to follow if you're not a musician. But 1 is where I was. So that was kind of my role. And then, so I was doing my normal production stuff. The lights would go down. I go out and play drums. Lights would come up, and then we go out and film. We make movies. We were making movies at the time. And that tour was great because we had Al Cooper on the tour, and Fred Tackett. I mean, it was just this incredible lineup. Tim Drummond on bass. And so we were all doing something, And then at the end of the tour, I said I was going to leave, and Bob was going to shut the studio down in Santa Monica anyway. So he said, "I'm going to take off for a few years anyway." So we did.